So now for the work on the body, the first step was using the base template we had in the body and break it down into what will help creating the different body parts. So looking at the concept art, we can break down into several different parts. We have the shirt, we have the tie, we're gonna have the suspenders and the trousers and the shoes. So I went in and I broke the body into different parts. They still have the shape of the original mesh, but they are closer to each part that I want. So I've exported every single one as an OBJ. Then I went back into Zbrush and I'm using the concept art to adjust the shapes of each body part into the clothing. So I've started with the front view, and this is a quite simple process, and I feel it's quicker and more organic than the way we do it on Photoshop, on Mac, sorry. Also, we only want a generic layout because then we're going back to Macs and we're going to start working and getting more detail on every single area. So I get a side view. Since we have a final head that really matches the original, we can use that as a reference to see the scaling for the head. This process is quite similar to what we did previously on the low poly body. So after we get the shape, we'll export every single mesh and work it on Studio Max to get a high-res version. Okay, so we have finished the first step on creating the high-res character, which is to create the high-res clothing. So in Max, I've been working and creating high-res versions of everything based on the concept. So we have the high-res shirt, high-res suspenders, high-res tie, shoes, everything. If you look at it, you'll realize that there are no folds or any other details that made it look better, and you can also see there's some strange pinching in some areas or just very amateurish style modeling. So this is the step now where I'll take all these models to ZBrush and I'll actually move them around because it's much easier when it's clothing and create folds. So details like the shoes will only need to be moved around to match the scale of the concept, since they're already quite good in terms of modeling. Other details like the trousers, in this case it will only be the trousers, and the shirt, that will need some ZBrush work. You'll also notice that the suspenders are going through the shirt. So this means that in ZBrush I'll need to create folds for the shirt, in the front and in the back. Also, you'll realize that in the concept the suspenders are slightly different from the ones I made here. Well, this is because the concept is not clear enough, so I needed to do some extra research in terms of character. There were some things I noticed that are not right. So the first thing was the zipper on the trousers. In male trousers it goes to the left, and in the concept is to the right. The same thing with the tie pin. It's on the left side and it should be on the right, so it folds inside the shirt. I've also made the shirt completely model, even though we might not see it, just in case we need a version without the tie. Also, there are missing buttons on the character, and when trying to see how these suspenders work during my research, I realized in the 50s they were slightly different. So after some research, this is what the concept artist meant when he was doing his suspenders. Also, he's missing the little clip thing we have, which we also added in the concept, in the model I mean. So looking at different variations, I could find how they should actually work. Also, I had to investigate how do they actually fit into the trousers, because on the concept he's using a metal version, but this is a button version. And since the character is not wearing a belt, this would look very, very empty. So I decided to add a button to clean up the simplicity of the area of the belts. Also, the shoes are not very clear here, so I asked for clarification, and we got some examples of what they want as shoes. A blend between these ones and these ones without the metal parts. Also, in the cufflink area, the concept is not clear enough, and if you look at the rotations, you can see it's missing detail, because on a real shirt, once again research, you'll realize that there is an area that it folds to the back, and then there's an extra button. And with the 3D version, I've added fold and the cufflinks. Everything is exaggerated to match our concepts. So now the process is we go to Zbrush. Here it is, the character already subdivided. I'll start working on folds, and any other relevant details. And then I'll have to export them back to Max. So I do render to texture for all the details. And I didn't bring in any buttons or cufflinks, because those I'll be able to work on them in Max and will keep the file much, much lighter. So as before, with the low body and the head, first step is to align a global align with the low poly geometry to the concept. You can see, since I had to change the angle of the arms, they now do not match the concept, but this is something we'll have to take into account. Also, I've flipped the concept image, since, like we saw before, the tie and the zipper should be inverted, so it's easier for me to have them as a reference. One of the good things of doing this stage of the work in Zbrush is that it's really easy to push around this high-level geometry without being worried with vertices overlapping. Since the brush is always quite big, once we have the overall shape, then we're going to start creating the folds in the high-res mesh. So this first stage, just like the head, is very loose, and it's always very important to have some reference. So get images of people using suspenders in this case, and try to see how the folds on the shirt are. This is quite a cartoonish style, so the folds are going to be very simple. If it was realistic, they should be much stronger, but we want to keep it quite clean and only create folds on the most relevant areas. So under the arms and wherever the suspenders are creating pressure. Also, when doing folds for video games, you have to find the in-between an extreme pose and the simple pose. So we would like folds that should work when the arms are fully stretched, but should also work when they're bending or when he's doing movements. Also, at this stage, I will align the suspenders to make sure they have a nice curve going on and they don't overlap the shirt anymore. Always getting reference, like the image on the left, where you can see how the folds work on a shirt. Always try to break the symmetry when working on folds. Like, I've decided the arms will use the same UV space, so I only need to do one of them. But in that case, it becomes more important to break the symmetry on the shirt so people don't feel that everything is sharing the same texture. For the sleeves, I'll try to do a blend between what we have in the concept and the real shirt. So the folds in the center where the elbow is and where the armbands are going to be more based in reality. And then in the bottom, it's more towards what the concept has. Always pinching the sides and trying to do a stylized style of wrinkles. Not realistic, still clean, but still with some detail that creates interesting results.